"Can I sit here?" Disabled girl asked a U.S. Marine and his dog. What happened next shocked everyone. The transit station called Horizon Ring floated above a pale blue planet that had no name most travelers cared to learn. It was simply a stop, a clean circle of metal and glass wrapped around a slow-spinning hub. Ships came and went like quiet birds. Screens spoke in a dozen languages. Floors hummed with soft gravity fields that helped different bodies walk without pain. Staff Sergeant Cole Ramirez sat on a bench near a wide viewing window. Beyond the glass, the planet turned slowly, its clouds like brushstrokes. The station lights made everything look calm, almost gentle. It did not match what most people imagined when they heard the words U.S. Marine, Cole did not look like a storybook hero. He was broad-shouldered and tired in a way that did not come from a single bad night. His uniform was simple and clean, and his boots were placed neatly under the bench. His hands rested on his knees, relaxed, as if the whole galaxy could rush around him and he would not be pushed. His gaze was steady, not hard, just steady. At his feet lay Atlas, a large service dog with a black and tan coat and a thick collar. Atlas wore a harness marked with clear symbols that most species understood: working animal, do not distract. Even so, people looked at him with curiosity. Some travelers had never seen a dog. Others had only seen them in old clips or museum footage. A few had met dogs on human ships and still could not decide if they were cute, scary, or both. Atlas did not care what anyone thought. He watched the crowd with calm attention, nose twitching now and then, ears turning toward sounds that mattered. He was not restless. He was not bored. He was simply present, like a quiet guardian made of warmth and patience. Cole's travel orders were still hours away. He had time to sit, breathe, and let the station's steady rhythm settle his mind. He had chosen this bench because it was not right in the center, but not hidden either. He could see the concourse. He could see the gates. He could see the people who might need help before they asked for it. That habit was part of him now. It had nothing to do with weapons or fighting. It was just something the Marines taught in many ways. Notice things early. Make problems smaller before they become big. Take care of your people. Around him, the station moved like a small city. A group of tall, thin aliens, Valen, walked by in matching gray travel cloaks. Their bodies were long and delicate, their faces smooth, their eyes glossy like polished stone. They spoke in quick clicks and soft tones, each voice layered over the other in a pattern that sounded like rain on glass. A family of Koroa waddled toward a food stall. They were round-bodied and feathered, with bright bead-like eyes and small hands. Their young one tugged at a parent's sleeve and pointed at Atlas with a squeak that was half laughter, half shock. A station steward drone hovered near the ceiling, scanning crowds, sending gentle reminders about gate changes and luggage limits. Cole knew most of them by sight now. Humans had been traveling the wider galaxy for long enough that stations like Horizon Ring had learned to build for them too. Still, many species kept their distance from human military uniforms. Not because humans were loud or rude, but because humans carried a reputation. To some, humans were the stubborn ones. To others, the fast builders. And to many, the ones who bring soldiers and dogs. Cole could feel the glances now and then. Some were curious. Some were cautious. A few held an old kind of fear. He did not blame them. Fear was often just ignorance wearing a mask. Atlas lifted his head slightly when a new scent reached him. His tail thumped once against the floor, a soft sound that did not disturb anyone but still carried meaning, like a quiet knock. Cole followed Atlas's attention with a small turn of his head. Near the edge of the concourse, a child stood still among moving legs and rolling bags. She was not human. She was small, about the height of an 8-year-old human, but her body had a different shape. Her skin had a faint shimmer, as if it held tiny crystals beneath the surface. Her arms were slender, and her legs were supported by light braces that hugged her joints. The braces glowed softly, adjusting to the station's gravity. Even with them, she seemed unsteady, like each step asked a question her body had to answer carefully. She held a small travel bag close to her chest. Her eyes were wide, bright, and very aware of everything around her. She watched the bench. She watched Cole. She watched Atlas. Then she looked away quickly when she noticed Cole's gaze shift toward her. She did not run. She did not hide. She simply paused as if she was choosing between two hard options. Cole did not move. He did not wave her over. He did not speak. He had learned that sudden attention could feel like pressure to someone already struggling. He kept his posture neutral. His face stayed calm. Atlas lowered his head again, but his eyes remained on the child. The child took a small step forward. Her braces made a quiet, almost musical sound, like tiny rings brushing. Another step. Then she stopped when a group of adults passed between her and the bench, forcing her to wait. Cole noticed the way she held her bag tight, like it was a shield. He noticed her breathing, shallow, quick. He noticed the faint tremor in one knee brace as it corrected her balance. When the path cleared, she moved again. This time she walked toward the bench with careful determination. It reminded Cole of someone climbing a hill, slow, steady, refusing to quit. Atlas's tail thumped twice, still soft but more certain now. People around them began to notice too, not because a child walking was unusual, but because the child was walking toward the Marine and his dog. A few travelers slowed down. A Valen elder tilted their head, watching with a worried crease in the skin near their eyes. A station attendant shifted his stance, ready to intervene if something unsafe happened. A couple of humans in civilian clothes glanced at each other with small smiles, as if they already guessed what Cole would do. The child reached the bench and stopped at a polite distance. Up close, Cole could see fine lines in her skin that caught the light. Her species, he remembered, was called the Cerevi. He had heard they were sensitive to gravity changes and could get tired quickly in busy stations. The child's fingers tightened around her bag strap. She looked at Atlas first, then at Cole. Her voice came out soft but clear enough to hear. "Can I sit here?" For a moment, the sounds of the concourse seemed to fade, as if the station itself was holding its breath. Cole could feel the weight of watching eyes. He could also feel the child's hope, fragile and brave. Cole opened his mouth to answer, but Atlas moved first. Atlas shifted his body without standing. He slid a little to the side, making space on the bench by nudging Cole's boot lightly with his shoulder, as if to say, "Move your feet. She needs room." Cole blinked once, surprised in the way only a partner could surprise him. Then he moved his boots back and angled his knees to create a clear open space. Atlas looked up at the child. His ears were relaxed. His mouth was slightly open, not panting, just calm. His tail gave one slow wag. The child stared at him, and something in her face changed. The fear did not vanish, but it softened like ice warming under sunlight. Cole nodded toward the space. "Yes," he said gently, "you can sit here." Her shoulders dropped a little as if she had been holding them high for a long time. She stepped closer. The braces adjusted again, steadying her. She sat down carefully, keeping her bag on her lap. For a second she sat very still, like she expected someone to scold her or pull her away, but nothing happened. The bench did not reject her. The Marine did not glare. The dog did not growl or snap. The station did not collapse into chaos. It was just a bench, just a moment. But moments could be bigger than they looked. Atlas turned slightly so his body formed a warm wall between the child and the busiest flow of people. He did it naturally, without drama, the way a trained service dog might position himself to reduce stress for someone fragile. He did not touch her. He simply made the world feel less sharp. The child's eyes flicked toward the crowd. She noticed people watching. Her cheeks, if her species had cheeks, seemed to brighten with a faint glow that might have been embarrassment. She stared at her hands. Cole kept his voice low. "You okay?" She hesitated, then she nodded once. Cole did not press. Silence could be kind. He watched the crowd instead, keeping his presence steady and calm. A small Koroa child waddled closer, pointing at Atlas with excitement. The Koroa parent tugged them back quickly, whispering something about human war animals. Atlas barely glanced at them. He was focused on his job, calm, safe, steady. The Cerevi girl finally spoke again, softly. He is very big." Cole smiled a little. "Yeah, he is." Her eyes flicked to Cole's uniform patches. She recognized enough symbols to know he belonged to the human military. She swallowed. "Aren't you dangerous?" she asked, as if she hated the question but needed to ask it anyway. Cole looked at her, really looked, and saw more than the braces and the shy voice. He saw a child who had learned to be careful because the world often demanded it. He answered honestly in the simplest words he could. "I can be," he said, "but not to you." The child's fingers loosened slightly on the bag strap. "People move away when I come near," she said, still looking down. "They don't want to slow, they don't want the trouble." Cole felt a quiet ache in his chest. Not anger, not sadness exactly, something heavier like responsibility. "That's not right," he said. She looked up at him now, surprised by the directness. Before she could speak, Atlas leaned his head forward slowly and rested his chin near the edge of the bench, close enough that she could touch him if she wanted, but not forcing it. His eyes were gentle. His ears stayed relaxed. The girl stared at Atlas as if he was a strange kind of miracle. Then, with slow care, she reached out and touched the fur on the top of his head. Atlas did not flinch. He did not move away. He simply accepted the touch, steady as a promise. A soft sound escaped the girl's throat, half laugh, half relief. It wasn't loud, but it carried. A few people nearby shifted again, their expressions changing. Some looked confused, some looked touched. Some looked guilty, as if they remembered times they had walked past someone who needed space. Cole watched the crowd from the corner of his eye. He saw a station attendant take a hesitant step forward, then pause. The attendant's badge marked him as an authority on station comfort and traffic flow. He glanced at the growing cluster of onlookers, then at Cole's uniform, then at the child. Cole understood what was coming before it happened. On a station like this, where schedules mattered, a vulnerable child sitting with a Marine could become a situation. Some people preferred to remove situations quickly. The attendant approached, keeping his hands visible, posture polite but firm. "Excuse me," the attendant said, voice amplified slightly by a small throat device. "This seating area is intended for transit priority. Your presence may create crowding." The girl stiffened. Her hand withdrew from Atlas as if she had been caught doing something wrong. Her shoulders rose again, protective. Cole stayed seated, but his body changed in small ways, spine straighter, attention sharper. Atlas lifted his head, calm but alert. Cole looked up at the attendant. His voice stayed controlled, quiet enough not to inflame anything, strong enough to be heard. "She asked to sit," Cole said. "I said yes." The attendant glanced at the crowd again. "Sir, you must understand." "I understand," Cole interrupted, not rude, just clear. "She's resting. She's not blocking the path. This bench is public." The attendant's eyes narrowed slightly, not hostile, more like someone trying to solve a problem with rules. "We also must consider safety perceptions. Many species find military animals intimidating." Atlas gave a slow, harmless wag, as if offended by the idea that kindness could be mistaken for danger. Cole's gaze did not harden, but it did sharpen. "Atlas is a service dog," he said. "He's trained, he's calm, and he's not bothering anyone." The attendant shifted his weight, uncomfortable. "I'm asking you to relocate. There are quieter zones." The girl's fingers tightened again on her bag. She began to move, preparing to stand, ready to remove herself the way she had learned to do. Before she could, Cole stood up. He did not stand in a threatening way. He did not step toward the attendant with aggression. He simply rose to his full height, placing his body between the girl and the official, like a wall made of steady patience. Atlas stood too smoothly and sat at Cole's heel, eyes on the attendant, calm and watchful. The crowd's attention sharpened. A few more people drifted closer. Quiet cameras lifted. A drone paused midair as if unsure whether to record. Cole's voice stayed even. "She can stay," he said. "If you want less crowding, tell people to keep walking." The attendant hesitated, clearly not expecting pushback from a human Marine in such a calm tone. He opened his mouth again, but then seemed to notice the reactions around them. How the crowd was watching not for a fight, but for a decision. The girl looked up at Cole, eyes wide, as if she could not believe someone was standing there for her without being asked. Atlas glanced back at her once, tail giving a soft wag as if to say, "You're okay. Stay." The attendant took a slow breath, then looked at his wrist display. He seemed to be deciding whether to call for backup, not because Cole was violent, but because the station was built on order and order loved procedures. He lifted his chin. "Sir," he said, "I will have to report this." Cole nodded. "Go ahead." The attendant turned slightly and Cole could see him activate a discreet communication channel. The crowd leaned in. The girl held her bag like a lifeline. Atlas stayed perfectly still, a quiet guardian with warm eyes. And somewhere in the station's endless network of screens, a small recording light blinked on, capturing the moment that was about to spread far beyond Horizon Ring. Cole looked down at the girl and spoke softly just for her. "You don't have to move," he said. "You're allowed to rest." The girl swallowed, her throat tight with something she didn't have words for. She gave a small, trembling nod. Behind Cole, the attendant's device chimed. Someone on the other end had answered. The next words would decide whether this stayed a simple kindness or became something the whole station would remember. Cole kept his stance steady. Atlas's tail thumped once. The soft chime from the attendant's device echoed louder than it should have in the open space of the concourse. It was a small sound, but it carried weight. The kind of weight that meant someone else was now watching, listening, deciding. Cole did not move. He kept his body relaxed but firm like a tree in light wind. Atlas stayed at his side, breathing slow and steady. The Saravi girl sat on the bench behind him, her hands folded over her bag, eyes fixed on the floor and then on Cole's boots, as if those boots were the safest thing in the station. The attendant turned slightly away, speaking in low tones into his wrist device. His words were too quiet for most to hear, but the meaning was clear. He was reporting a situation. Around them, people did not leave. In fact, more of them slowed down. A pair of humans in travel jackets stopped near a pillar. One of them lifted a small recording device, not hiding it. A Valen family paused near a transit map, their long heads tilted in shared focus. A Koroa elder gently guided their children to sit on the floor nearby, whispering to them to be quiet and watch. The station did not feel like a place of rushing travelers anymore. It felt like a room where a story was being told, and no one wanted to miss the next line. The Saravi girl finally looked up at Cole's back. She did not understand the station's rules. She did not understand authority and reports and systems. She only understood that someone big and strong had chosen to stand between her and something that made her feel small. She reached out without thinking and lightly touched the back of Cole's uniform, just for a second. Her fingers brushed the fabric, then pulled back quickly as if she worried she had done something wrong. Cole felt the touch. It was light, barely there, but it meant everything. He did not turn around, but his voice softened even more when he spoke. "It's okay," he said quietly. "You're fine." Atlas glanced back at the girl again and gave a slow blink, a calm, friendly gesture that humans often recognized, but that still somehow worked on other species too. The attendant finished his message and turned back. His posture had changed. He looked less certain now, less like a rule holder and more like a person who had just been told something unexpected. "Sir," he said, clearing his throat, "my supervisor is on the way." Cole nodded. "That's fine." The attendant hesitated, then added, "Please understand, this is about keeping things smooth for everyone." Cole finally turned his head slightly, not enough to be confrontational, just enough to meet the attendant's eyes. "So is this," he said. The supervisor arrived a minute later. She was human, older than Cole, with silver lines in her hair and a station badge that marked her as someone who had seen many problems and solved most of them. She walked up calmly, taking in the scene with a quick, sharp look. Her eyes went from Cole to Atlas to the girl on the bench to the small crowd that had gathered. She exhaled slowly. "All right," she said. "What's going on?" the attendant explained in a quiet, formal tone. He spoke about crowding, about military presence, about discomfort among travelers. The supervisor listened without interrupting. When he finished, she looked at Cole. "Your side?" she asked. Cole kept his words simple. "She asked to sit. I said yes. She needed a place to rest." The supervisor looked at the girl. "Is that true?" The Saravi girl nodded quickly. "Yes, ma'am," she said, her voice small but clear. "I get tired. The braces help, but I still get tired." The supervisor studied her for a moment, then she looked at Atlas, then back at Cole. She turned to the attendant. "Is the bench blocked?" The attendant glanced at the open space around them. "No, but is anyone being prevented from passing?" the supervisor asked. "No. Is there a safety risk?" she continued. The attendant hesitated. "Not directly." The supervisor nodded once. "Then this isn't a problem, it's a pause." She turned back to Cole. "You can both stay." A quiet sound rippled through the crowd, relief, approval, maybe even something like pride. The girl's shoulders dropped again, this time for good. She leaned back against the bench, breathing more slowly. The attendant stepped back, looking embarrassed but not angry. The supervisor gave Cole a small, respectful nod and walked away, already moving on to the next issue, waiting somewhere else in the station. The moment could have ended there, but it didn't. One of the humans who had been recording stepped closer. She was middle-aged, with kind eyes and a worn travel bag. She did not push into the space. She simply raised her voice enough to be heard. "That was a good thing you did," she said to Cole. Cole shifted, uncomfortable with attention. "Just a bench," he replied. She smiled. "Sometimes that's all it takes." A Valen elder moved forward next. Their voice was soft, layered with the gentle harmonics of their species. "Human Marine," they said, Your animal showed kindness before you did. That is interesting. Atlas's tail wagged once, proud in a simple, honest way. Cole allowed himself a small smile. He's better at it than I am. The Saravi girl looked between them, confused but curious. Why are people watching? She asked Cole. He thought about it for a moment. Because sometimes people forget they can stop, he said. And when they see someone stop, it reminds them they can too. She considered this, her eyes thoughtful. My mother says the galaxy moves too fast, she said. She says only strong people can keep up. Cole shook his head gently. Strong people make room. The girl smiled at that. It was a small smile, but it lit up her face like a star finding its place in the dark. More travelers began to approach, not crowding, just offering quiet presence. A Koroa child waddled closer again, this time with their parents' permission. They sat on the floor a few feet away and stared at Atlas with open wonder. A pair of Valen placed their long limbs carefully and leaned against a pillar. Watching like students in a lesson, they did not know they were attending. A tall alien with skin like polished metal set down a heavy case and rested, clearly taking the moment as an excuse to breathe. The bench became something more than a place to sit. It became a center. The girl looked at Atlas again. Can I? She asked, lifting her hand. Cole nodded. You can pet him. She gently ran her fingers through Atlas's fur. It was warm and thick, and it made her laugh again, a soft, surprised sound. My name is Lyra, she said suddenly, as if she had just realized something important. I forgot to say it. Cole turned a little more now. I'm Cole, and that's Atlas. Atlas gave a quiet huff like a greeting. Lyra tilted her head. Why did you name him after something so big? She asked. Cole thought. Because he carries things, he said. Not with his back, with his heart. She nodded slowly, as if that made perfect sense. Above them, a station screen changed. It was supposed to display gate numbers and ship arrivals. But someone, somewhere in the station's media system, had switched the feed. Now a live video showed the bench, the Marine, the dog, and the Saravi girl. The image appeared on one screen, then another. Then dozens spread across the ring. People who had not been nearby stopped where they were. They looked up. They saw the quiet moment being shared in real time. The crowd around the bench grew, but it did not press in. It formed a wide, respectful circle. Lyra noticed the screens and gasped. We're on the walls, she whispered. Cole followed her gaze and sighed softly. Looks like it. Is that bad? She asked. He shook his head. Not always. A voice came from one of the screens, gentle and calm, belonging to a station broadcaster. For those just tuning in, the voice said, we are witnessing a moment in Concourse 3. A human Marine and his service dog have offered rest and space to a Saravi child traveler. Station officials have confirmed there is no disruption to transit. Lyra's eyes went wide. They're talking about us. They're talking about you, Cole corrected. She shrank a little at that, suddenly shy again. I didn't do anything, Cole smiled. You asked. The broadcaster continued. This interaction has already been shared across multiple systems. We are receiving messages from other stations, other worlds. Cole rubbed the back of his neck, uncomfortable with being part of something so big. He had wanted a quiet moment. He had gotten a galaxy's attention. Lyra looked thoughtful. Do you think other kids like me will see this? I hope so, Cole said. Do you think they'll ask to sit too? She asked. He looked at the bench, at the space beside her, at the way people were now choosing to stop and rest instead of rush past. I think they will, he said. A message chimed on Cole's wrist device. He glanced down. It was a notice from his unit. His departure time had been moved up. He felt a small twist of regret. He looked at Lyra. I might have to go soon. Her face fell just a little. Oh, but, he added, this bench isn't going anywhere. She nodded. I'll stay for a while, she said. I like it here. Atlas leaned closer to her leg and rested against the brace, careful not to put weight on it, just enough to offer warmth. The broadcaster's voice softened. Across the galaxy, viewers are sending messages of support, of thanks, of stories about times they were offered space when they needed it most. Cole looked at the crowd again. He saw people smiling at strangers. He saw a Valen help a Koroa with a dropped bag. He saw a human offer their seat to a tired-looking alien traveler, small things spreading like ripples. Lyra looked up at Cole one last time. Thank you for not moving, she said. He shook his head gently. Thank you for asking. A soft chime echoed through the concourse. Cole's gate number appeared on the screens. He stood and shouldered his pack. Atlas rose smoothly, ready to follow. Lyra's hand hovered in the air for a second, unsure. Then she gave a small wave. Cole returned it. Atlas wagged his tail. Cole took a few steps, then paused. He turned back, reached into a pocket on his pack, and pulled out a small patch. It was a gravity-stabilizing patch, the kind soldiers used when their bodies were tired or hurt. He knelt and held it out to Lyra. "For when the braces aren't enough," he said. Her eyes filled with light. She took it carefully, like it was something precious. "Will I see you again?" she asked. "Maybe," Cole said, "but even if you don't remember this place," she nodded. "I will." Cole and Atlas walked away, blending back into the flow of the station. Lyra stayed on the bench, the patch in her hand, the warmth of Atlas's fur still on her fingers. Above her, the screen slowly returned to schedules and gate numbers. But something had changed. People did not move quite as fast anymore. And on stations far away, on worlds Cole would never see, children like Lyra watched the broadcast and learned something simple and powerful. That it was okay to ask. The bench did not stay quiet after Cole and Atlas left. Lyra sat there for a long time, her small hands turning the gravity patch over and over. The crowd slowly thinned, but the feeling of the moment stayed in the air, like warmth that did not fade right away. People still moved more slowly. Some still smiled at strangers. Some still chose to sit, to rest, to notice. Lyra's mother found her not long after. She was taller, with the same shimmering skin and careful braces, but her movements were more practiced, more used to the weight of the station. When she saw Lyra on the bench, she hurried over, worry written across her face. "Lyra," she said, "I was looking everywhere for you." Lyra looked up and smiled. "I was resting." Her mother's eyes flicked around, noticing the empty space beside her, the way a few people nearby were still watching with soft expressions. "What happened here?" she asked. Lyra held up the gravity patch. "I met a human Marine and his dog." Her mother froze for half a second. "A Marine?" "Yes," Lyra said, nodding, "but he was nice and the dog was nicer." Her mother sat down slowly beside her. "Tell me." So Lyra told her everything, about how she had been tired, about how she had been afraid to ask, about how Atlas had moved first, about how Cole had stood up for her, about how the whole station had watched. Her mother listened in silence, her eyes growing bright. When Lyra finished, she said softly, "That man did something very brave." Lyra tilted her head. "He didn't fight anyone." Her mother smiled. "Sometimes bravery looks like standing still." Above them, a screen flickered again. This time it was not a live feed. It was a replay, the moment where Lyra asked, the moment Atlas moved, the moment Cole stood. The station broadcaster had labeled it simply, "Making Space." Travelers stopped again. Some recognized the clip from earlier. Some were seeing it for the first time. Messages began to appear at the bottom of the screen, scrolling slowly. From a mining station near a red dwarf star. From a school orbiting a gas giant. Her mother squeezed her hand. "Sometimes small things go very far." On another part of the station, Cole walked through a long corridor toward his gate. Atlas stayed close at his side, moving smoothly through the crowd. Cole's wrist device chimed again. This time it was not his unit. It was a message from Station Command. "Staff Sergeant Ramirez," the message read. "The Galactic Council has requested a formal report on the interaction in Concourse 3. You are not in trouble. This is informational." Cole stopped walking. Atlas stopped with him. Cole stared at the message for a long moment, then let out a quiet breath. "Figures," he muttered. A human officer nearby glanced at him. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," Cole said. "Just bigger than I expected." The officer smiled knowingly. "That's how it usually goes." Cole continued to his gate. He boarded his ship, found his seat, and settled in as Atlas curled up at his feet. As the ship lifted away from Horizon Ring, Cole looked out the small window. The station became a shining circle against the dark. Somewhere in that circle, a little girl sat on a bench, holding a patch and a memory. Cole did not know it yet, but the story of that bench had already left the station. It traveled faster than any ship. On a distant world with wide green plains and tall crystal towers, a council chamber filled with many shapes and colors. The Galactic Council was not one species. It was dozens, all gathered in a ring of seats that rose in gentle steps around a central platform. A large screen hovered above the platform. On it played the clip. The girl, the dog, the Marine, the silence, the stand. Council members watched closely. A tall, feathered being leaned forward. "This is the human soldier?" they asked. A smooth-skinned delegate from a water world nodded. "Yes, a Marine." A metallic voice spoke from the shadows. They are known for force. Why is this one known for kindness? Another delegate replied, perhaps because we only look at their hands and not their hearts. The clip ended. The chamber stayed quiet for a long moment. Finally, the council speaker, an ancient being whose voice carried calm authority, spoke. This moment has been seen across our systems. Our citizens are asking questions. What questions? Asked a small, glowing representative. The speaker answered, why do our stations move so fast that a child must ask for permission to rest? Why do our rules protect schedules more than people? Murmurs rippled through the chamber. A Valen delegate stood. My people have long struggled with high-gravity stations. We are often overlooked. A Koroa representative raised a small hand. So are ours, the speaker nodded. Then perhaps it is time to change something. Back on Horizon Ring, Lyra and her mother watched as another traveler approached the bench. This time it was an older alien with heavy limbs and tired eyes. They hesitated, then looked at Lyra. May I sit? They asked. Lyra smiled just like Cole had. Yes, she said, you can. The alien sat, relief clear in their posture. Lyra's mother watched this and felt something deep and quiet settle in her chest. The bench was teaching. Across the galaxy, similar scenes began to appear. On a station carved into an asteroid, a group of humans moved their bags to make space for a long-bodied traveler who needed to stretch out. On a trading hub near a blue star, a pair of robots paused their work to guide a lost child back to their family instead of hurrying past. On a research outpost in deep space, a sign was put up near the entrance. Rest here, all are welcome. And in each place, someone mentioned a marine and a dog and a girl on a bench. Cole arrived at his destination 2 days later. It was a quiet base on a moon with low gravity and wide open skies. He went back to training, to drills, to long walks with Atlas along the edge of the landing fields. But people began to recognize him, not as a marine, as the bench guy. A young technician approached him one day holding a small device. My sister saw what you did, the technician said. She's on a medical station. She says it made her day easier. Cole did not know what to say to that. He just nodded. Atlas wagged his tail. A week later, a formal message arrived. Cole was being asked to attend a council session, not as a soldier, as a witness. He almost refused. But then he remembered Lyra's face when he told her she could stay, so he went. The council chamber was even bigger in person. The air felt different, like it carried the weight of many worlds. Cole stood on the central platform. Atlas sat at his side. The speaker addressed him. Staff Sergeant Ramirez, why did you do what you did? Cole shifted, uncomfortable. She was tired, he said. She needed a place to sit. The speaker tilted their head. And when you were told to move? I didn't think it was right, Cole said simply. Why? Cole thought for a long moment. Then he answered, because I've been the one who needed someone to make space. And I remember how it felt when they did. The chamber went quiet again. The speaker nodded slowly. Your people call this humanity. We are beginning to understand why. They gestured and another screen lit up. It showed plans for new station designs, wider paths. More benches, softer gravity zones, clear signs in many languages that said, rest here. We are proposing a program, the speaker said. We wish for humans to help lead it. Cole blinked. Lead what? An interspecies effort, the speaker replied, to make our galaxy easier to move through for those who struggle. Cole looked at Atlas, who looked back with calm eyes. I'm just a marine, Cole said. The speaker's voice softened. No. You are someone who stood still when the galaxy rushed. Cole did not know how to answer that. Back on Horizon Ring, Lyra stood up from the bench for the first time in a long while without feeling rushed. Her mother smiled at her. Ready to go? Lyra nodded. Yes. She took one last look at the empty space beside her. Someone else will need it, she said. Her mother nodded. And now someone will notice. As they walked away, another child approached the bench. Human, small, tired, eyes unsure. They looked around. They looked at the bench. They took a breath. Can I sit here? They asked the air, not sure who they were asking. A nearby traveler smiled and moved their bag. Yes, they said, you can. The galaxy did not change all at once. It changed one bench at a time. One question at a time, the council's decision did not stay inside the chamber. Within days, messages spread across stations, ships, and worlds. They did not travel as orders or commands. They traveled as invitations. Make space initiative, the messages said. A shared effort to create rest zones, safe paths, and welcoming places for all species and all bodies. Some people ignored it. Some people laughed. But many people remembered a girl on a bench, a Marine who stood still, and a dog who moved first. And they listened. On Horizon Ring, new signs appeared near every concourse. They were simple, written in many languages and symbols. Rest here. Soft lights were placed above them so tired eyes would not strain. Lyra visited the station again a week later with her mother. She did not come because she was tired this time. She came because she wanted to see if the bench was still there. It was. It looked different now. Cleaner, brighter, wider, but it felt the same. She sat down, her feet swinging slightly above the floor. Her mother sat beside her. People passed by, but now they did not rush as hard. Some glanced at the sign, some slowed, some even smiled at Lyra. A tall alien with skin like moving water stopped nearby. They looked at the bench, then at the sign, then at Lyra. "Is this seat free?" they asked. Lyra nodded. "Yes." They sat, and just like that, the bench was full again, not with bodies, but with something else. With belonging. Far away on a cold station near the edge of known space, a human engineer named Mara stood in a narrow hallway, staring at a blueprint on her tablet. The station had been built for speed, not comfort. Narrow paths, hard lights, no places to stop. She remembered seeing the clip of the Marine and the girl. She closed her tablet, walked to a supply locker, and pulled out a roll of bright fabric and a portable light. She tied the fabric between two support beams and set the light on low. It wasn't much. But when a tired-looking alien child wandered by, dragging a heavy bag, they stopped under the soft light. They sat down. Mara smiled. On Cole's base, the changes were quieter but just as real. A new bench appeared near the training field, then another near the medical wing. At first, people joked about it. "Careful," one Marine said. "You sit there and you might change the galaxy." But then they started using the benches. Wounded soldiers rested there. Tired technicians sat there. Visitors from other species stopped there, surprised to find a place that felt like it was meant for them. Cole walked past one evening and saw Atlas lying beside a small alien with long arms and drooping eyes. The alien was gently scratching Atlas's ear. Atlas looked very pleased. Cole did not interrupt. He didn't need to. The council met again a month later. This time the chamber felt different, less heavy, more open. The speaker stood and addressed the gathered delegates. "We have received reports from over 200 stations," they said. "New rest zones, new signs, new paths, and new stories." A screen lit up. Images appeared one after another. A human helping a Valen elder down a ramp. A Koroa family sharing food with a lone traveler. A group of children from 5 different species sitting in a circle drawing pictures of benches and stars. The speaker continued, "We did not order these changes. We suggested them. The people chose them." A delegate with wings made of light stood. "What do we call this program now?" they asked. "It has become more than space and benches," the speaker thought. Then they said, "We call it strength." Murmurs filled the chamber. "Not the strength of force," the speaker added, "but the strength to slow down, to notice." To make room. Cole stood near the edge of the room, Atlas at his side. He did not feel like he belonged there among leaders of worlds. But when he looked at the screen and saw a child sitting on a bench on a faraway station, he felt something steady inside him. Like he was standing in the right place. After the session, a Valen delegate approached him. "Human Marine," they said, "your people surprise us." Cole shifted. "We surprise ourselves sometimes." The delegate tilted their head. "Will you continue this work?" Cole looked down at Atlas, who looked up at him with patient eyes. "I don't think it's my work anymore," Cole said. "It belongs to everyone now." Back on Horizon Ring, Lyra stood in front of a small group of children. They were different sizes, shapes, and colors. Some had braces like hers. Some had wings, some rolled on small platforms instead of walking. A station teacher stood nearby, watching with a proud smile. Lyra held up a simple drawing. It showed a bench, a dog, and 2 stick figures, one tall, one small. "This is where it started," Lyra said. "I was scared, but I asked, and they made space." One of the children raised a hand. "What if they say no?" Lyra thought about it. "Then you ask someone else," she said, "because someone will say yes." The children nodded, as if this was the most important lesson in the universe. On a distant trade route, a cargo ship captain slowed their vessel near a drifting escape pod. Old rules would have said to log it and move on. But the captain remembered the bench. They stopped. Inside the pod was a tired traveler, alone and shaking. The captain offered them a seat in the cockpit and a warm drink. The traveler cried with relief. Small things. Far from the trade lanes on a quiet moon, Cole sat on a bench beside the landing field. The sky was wide and pale, stretched across the horizon. Atlas lay at his feet, head on his paws, watching the clouds drift. A young recruit approached, nervous and unsure. "Staff Sergeant," they said. "Can I sit here?" Cole smiled. "Yeah," he said, "you can." The recruit sat and let out a long breath. They talked about nothing important, about the sky, about the base, about how Atlas's ears moved when he heard distant engines. But when the recruit stood up to leave, their shoulders were lighter. Cole watched them go. He thought about Lyra. He wondered where she was now, what bench she might be sitting on, who might be sitting beside her. On Horizon Ring, Lyra and her mother prepared to leave the station. Their ship waited at the gate. Lyra stopped one last time at the bench. It was full. A human with a tired face, a tall alien with heavy steps, a small child swinging their legs. Lyra did not feel sad that she could not sit. She felt proud. Her mother placed a hand on her shoulder. "Ready?" Lyra nodded. As they walked away, Lyra looked back. The bench was still there, still doing its quiet work. Across the galaxy, the make space signs became common, not because the council demanded it, because people wanted it. And in stories told on long journeys, in schools, in quiet moments before sleep, one tale was shared again and again. Not of a battle, not of a hero with a weapon, but of a tired girl, a calm marine, and a dog who moved first. And how they reminded the galaxy that strength did not always mean standing tall. Sometimes it meant sitting down. The galaxy did not become perfect. There were still crowded stations, still rushed travelers. Still moments when people forgot to look up from their screens and notice who was standing beside them. But there were also benches, not just pieces of metal or plastic or stone. Real places where the world slowed down even for a moment. On a small green world far from Horizon Ring, Lyra stood at the edge of a wide field. The sky above her was soft and blue, and the air smelled like warm grass and distant rain. Her braces were newer now, lighter and stronger, built with help from engineers who had heard her story and wanted to make things easier for children like her. She walked slowly, but she walked with confidence. Behind her, a group of young Saravi children followed, some walking, some rolling on small platforms, some supported by parents. Lyra was their guide today. At the edge of the field stood a simple wooden bench. It was nothing special. No signs, no glowing lights. Just a bench facing the open sky. Lyra stopped in front of it. "This is my favorite one," she said. A small child with bright eyes asked. "Why, it's just a bench," Lyra smiled. "So was the first one." The children gathered around, listening. She told them the story again. About being tired, about being scared to ask, about a big human and a bigger dog, about how the dog moved first. The children laughed at the idea of a dog making space before a soldier. "That's silly," one said. "That's kind," another said. Lyra nodded. "Both can be true." On a distant human world, Cole stood at the edge of a busy city park. The park had changed in the last year. More benches, more shade, wider paths, soft ground where children could sit without falling. People from many species walked there now. Cole wore civilian clothes, not his uniform. He had taken a break from the Marines, not because he was tired of serving, but because he had found another way to do it. Atlas walked beside him, older now, his steps a little slower, his fur touched with gray. They stopped near a bench where a human child and a small alien were sharing a piece of fruit, laughing as the juice ran down their hands. Cole sat down. Atlas lowered himself carefully at his feet with a soft sigh. A woman passing by recognized him. "Are you the Marine?" she asked. Cole blinked. "I was. You're the bench Marine," she said, smiling. Cole laughed softly. "I guess I am." She nodded toward the children. "My son learned to ask for help because of your story." Cole felt something warm in his chest. "He taught himself," he said. "I just sat down." Across the galaxy, the Make Space initiative had become something else. It was no longer a program, it was a habit. On ships, captains reminded crews to check on quiet passengers. On stations, children learned to offer seats before they were asked. On worlds that had never seen humans, stories were told about them, not as warriors, as watchers, as the ones who noticed when someone needed room. At a research station orbiting a bright yellow star, a young scientist rushed through a hallway late for a meeting. She almost stepped over a small alien sitting on the floor, struggling with a heavy case. She stopped. She backed up. "Do you need help?" she asked. The alien looked up, surprised. "Yes," they said. She lifted the case for them and carried it to a bench nearby. They both sat down, breathing hard. "Thank you," the alien said. The scientist smiled. "Someone once told me strength is making space." On Horizon Ring, the original bench was no longer just a bench. A small plaque had been placed beside it. It did not name Cole. It did not name Lyra. It simply said, "Here someone asked. Here someone made space." Travelers often stopped to read it. Some sat. Some just stood quietly for a moment. Lyra visited Horizon Ring again years later. She was taller now, stronger. Her braces were sleek and almost invisible under her clothes. She traveled as part of a student exchange program, teaching other young beings about accessibility and kindness. She stood in front of the plaque and smiled. A small human child tugged on her sleeve. "What does it mean?" the child asked. Lyra knelt down to their level. "It means this is a good place to rest," she said. The child nodded seriously and climbed onto the bench. A tired-looking alien parent hesitated nearby. The child patted the space beside them. "You can sit here," they said. The parent's eyes filled with something like relief. Far away on a quiet beach world, Cole walked along the water with Atlas. The waves were gentle. The sand was soft. Atlas stopped and looked at a piece of driftwood shaped like a bench. Cole laughed and sat down on it. Atlas circled once and lay beside him, his head resting against Cole's leg. Cole watched the horizon. He thought about all the places he had been, all the fights he had trained for, all the battles he had prepared to face. And he thought about the one moment that had mattered most. Not when he stood tall, but when he stood still. A message chimed on his wrist. It was from Lyra. They did not talk often, but they wrote sometimes. She sent him a picture. It showed a group of children sitting on a bench on a world Cole had never heard of. The sky above them was purple. The ground sparkled like dusted stars. The message said, "They asked, I said yes." Cole smiled. He showed the picture to Atlas. Atlas wagged his tail. On a deep space transport, a young traveler clutched their bag and looked around, nervous and tired. The ship was loud. The lights were bright. The seats were full. They saw an empty bench near the wall. They walked toward it. A large alien sat there, their body taking up most of the space. The traveler hesitated, then they took a breath. "Can I sit here?" they asked. The alien shifted, making room. "Yes," they said. The traveler sat down and let out a long breath. Above them, a screen played an old clip. A grainy video of a Marine, a dog, and a small girl on a station long ago. The caption read, "Making Space." On a world made of floating islands, a school held a celebration day. Children from many species decorated benches with ribbons and drawings. They wrote words in different languages. "Welcome." Everyone does. The galaxy kept moving. Ships still crossed stars. Stations still buzzed with noise and light. Worlds still turned in the dark. But now in all those places there were small islands of calm, benches, spaces, moments where someone could stop and breathe. On Horizon Ring, an old Kuroa sat alone on the original bench, watching ships depart. A young traveler approached, nervous and unsure. They looked at the bench. They looked at the Kuroa. "Can I sit here?" they asked. The Kuroa smiled and moved their bag. "Yes," they said. "You can." And somewhere far away, a Marine and his dog sat on a piece of driftwood by the sea, feeling the same quiet truth settle in their bones. That the strongest thing in the universe was not a weapon, not a ship, not a law. It was a simple choice: to notice, to stop, to make space.